What do you do when the family you've tried so hard to fit into turns their back on you, leaving you with nothing but betrayal and heartbreak? The words my mother-in-law spoke echoed in my mind, leaving me in stunned silence. "You need to leave," she said coldly, her gaze like ice. "Birch and Maple are coming for the birth, and we don't need you anymore." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. After all the years of trying to be accepted, I was being told to leave without warning. The shock of it all left me speechless, my heart breaking as I realized that I was no longer part of the family. Everything I'd worked for, every sacrifice, seemed meaningless now. I stood there frozen, in disbelief at what my mother-in-law had just said. "Since Birch and Maple are returning for a hometown childbirth, please vacate," she stated, her voice as cold as ever. "Her eldest son and his wife are due in 3 days." "Me? Leave?" I asked, still processing what I was hearing. I felt confused, shocked, and above all, hurt. "Yes," she replied, her gaze icy. "We don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while now. Birch and his family will be living here, so make sure you're gone by tomorrow." My heart sank. Never had I imagined this day would come, the day they would tell me to leave. Since marrying Oak, I had always known that I wasn't fully accepted into the family, but I had never expected them to be so direct in their rejection. "You barren failure," my mother-in-law snapped. "You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We owe you nothing anymore. It seems like Oak is tired of you too." I struggled to swallow. "What's Oak to?" I began, my voice trembling. But the words caught in my throat. It was clear now. This wasn't just about me. This was a plot between my mother-in-law and Birch. If it wasn't, then why would my husband stay silent? If this was their decision, then it seemed foolish to continue pretending everything was normal. Perhaps it was time to walk away from it all. But what about the house? What would happen to it now that they had made their choice? It was no longer my concern. Let them face the consequences of their actions. I, Willow Thompson, am 45 years old. I had been living with my husband and mother-in-law in a popular area close to the station, a location with excellent access to the city center. When we were house hunting, Oak, who had recently been promoted to a managerial position, insisted on finding a spacious apartment. The rent was high, but the space, the rooms, it all seemed worth it. My husband, Oak, was 8 years older than me and a divorcee. We met through a mutual friend, and I was comforted by his warm, caring nature traits that only seemed to deepen with age. After dating for 2 years, we decided to marry. Even after I disclosed that I couldn't have children due to a past illness, Oak's affection never wavered. Likewise, I didn't let his past, the fact that he had a son, Birch, from his previous marriage, deter me. "I'm truly sorry to ask you, someone who has never been married, to live with my parents and son," Oak had said to me when we first discussed our future. "I won't make you suffer. I'll ensure you're happy." To make sure I felt comfortable, Oak suggested we move into a spacious apartment so I could have my own room. "Birch, turning 10 this year, won't need much care with my mom around," he said. "You don't have to push yourself." After Oak's divorce, his parents helped with childcare, but a few years later, when Oak's father passed away, his mother became Birch's primary caretaker. From the moment I met Birch, he barely made eye contact with me. I thought it might be a sign of shyness, or that he was approaching a difficult age. I didn't worry. As long as they accepted me as a member of the household, I was content. My mother-in-law had always been quiet and refined. When I visited to formally introduce myself after our engagement, she treated me with kindness and politeness, making me think we would get along fine living together. But now, everything had changed. The reality of their rejection hit me all at once. "I'll continue to prepare the meals as I have been. Oak comes home late, so it's okay if we eat at different times, right, Willow? I'll leave the cleaning and laundry to you, all right? Let's work well together." After getting married, I switched from a full-time employee at the pharmacy to a part-timer due to the division of household chores. I started work a bit later in the morning, so I wouldn't get home until nearly 8 p.m. Dinner was always ready when I arrived, making me feel good about living together. My mother-in-law and Birch usually had dinner before I got home, so I was always eating alone. Even after getting married, I sometimes felt a sense of, is this it? But I came to accept that this was our family style. From the beginning, my mother-in-law never really liked me and didn't consider me part of the family at all. Birch, the school's activity day is before summer, right? When is it? We're all going to see you sometime. After getting married, I tried to break the ice with Birch, who still hadn't warmed up to me. No, I mean, as Birch faltered, my mother-in-law interjected, "We'll go there. Just Oak and me, Willow. You don't need to worry about it." I misunderstood her words, thinking she was just being considerate. "I can get the day off work. Let's all go together." "You don't need that. You're Oak's wife, and Birch's family has always been just Oak and me." I was quite shocked. When I brought it up with my husband at night, he said, "Mom's been clinging to Birch. She probably thinks you're trying to take him away. I'll talk to her eventually." I began to join as a mother at the activity day, but Birch and I rarely spend any time together outside of school events. Sometimes I could tell Birch wanted to say something, but my mother-in-law always cut in between us. I later found out that she had been bad-mouthing me to Birch. Willow said she could be happy with Oak if Birch weren't around. "She's a terrible person. Dad must be deceived by her too." If a boy in his formative years hears such things, it wouldn't be strange for him to distrust me. It was a sickening story, but at that time, I hadn't imagined that my mother-in-law could do such a thing. After graduating high school, Birch immediately moved in with his girlfriend and left home as soon as he started college. A year after he started working, he married her without a ceremony. After Birch moved out, I couldn't help but notice how dramatically my mother-in-law's behavior changed. Surprisingly, she stopped doing any housework altogether. It was as though her sole focus shifted to picking on me. She stopped cooking, something she used to do without fail, and instead, she would sit at the dining table, waiting for me to come home. The moment I entered the house, there was no time to sit down and relax. I'd head straight to the kitchen to prepare dinner. "You're really inefficient. At this rate, it'll take you all night," she remarked as I struggled with the cooking. I wasn't particularly skilled in the kitchen, having relied on her for meal preparations for so long. Every time I tried, she would taste my food and immediately complain, "This tastes awful." "I'm sorry. I'm trying my best," I would say, feeling a wave of frustration. "You're astonishingly tone-deaf when it comes to flavors, Willow. It's a good thing Birch never had to eat this. How terrible," she would say, the sarcasm laced in her words. If she was so displeased, I thought, why not make it herself? But it seemed her purpose was less about the meal and more about criticizing me. It didn't stop there. She began nitpicking things I never had to handle before, like cleaning and laundry. "Why are there so many wrinkles on the laundry? You have to vacuum every nook and cranny. You really can't do anything right? Didn't your family teach you anything?" She sighed, as if I was the cause of her problems. Hearing her insult me, especially about my family, made my blood boil. I clenched my fists in frustration, but I tried to hold it all in. "I don't know how you won over Oak, but I can't see much charm in you as a woman," she'd add. And then, always finishing with the same line, "If you hadn't come, Birch would have never left." I started to realize that there was something deeper going on with her, perhaps the hole left by Birch moving out. Maybe it was what they called empty nest syndrome. I convinced myself that if taking out her frustration on me made her feel better, I could endure it. But everything changed after one particular event. The event that shifted everything was Birch's announcement that his wife, Maple, was pregnant. My mother-in-law's excitement was overwhelming, something I had never seen before. "It's Birch's baby! It's going to be adorable! Yeah, he'll be my first grandchild," she beamed. Watching them both rejoice, I shared in their happiness. But my mother-in-law's excitement was beyond anything I had ever imagined. It seemed even more intense because Birch had asked her, "Grandma, can Maple have the baby at your place? Maple's family lives an hour away, and since they have no one else here, they've turned to us for help with the preparations." Of course, My mother-in-law could never say no to Birch. Once the news sank in, her joy skyrocketed, and the phone calls from Birch started to become frequent. The next day, she dove into preparations with zeal, cleaning out Birch's room, preparing bedding, and even making a list of baby items. It was as if she had caught some kind of grandchild fever. Naturally, I found myself swept up in the madness too. When I came home from work one evening, she had already started organizing everything. "Willow, I vacuumed Birch's room, so now you need to wipe the floors, clean the windows, and please wax them too. This weekend, we're going to the department store to look at baby cribs," she said, her tone filled with the kind of command I had come to dread. It felt as though I had been replaced in every way, first by Birch, then by Maple, and now by this impending new arrival. But this time, I wasn't just a passive participant. I could feel my patience wearing thin, but I chose to continue doing what I had to do, quietly keeping my thoughts to myself, trying to find a way through the chaos. Cleaning and waxing at night was tough, especially after a long day at work. If I even thought about cutting corners, I'd be told to do it over again. Moreover, my mother-in-law started asking for money, and before I knew it, the house was overflowing with baby stuff. "Willow, I need you to withdraw some money tomorrow. There are things I want to get ready for the baby." "Again? Isn't it wasteful to prepare so much when Maple and Birch haven't even arrived? Shouldn't we wait and choose together with them?" I had wanted to meet my mother-in-law's requests, but I was troubled by the relentless spending. "How can you be so cold? It's Oak's grandchild." "Oh, that's right. You're not related to Birch by blood. You don't care, do you?" "That's not true. Please don't say that. I just thought Maple might want to pick things out herself." "When do you want to choose things for your own child?" Perhaps because I was making a valid point, my mother-in-law glared at me sharply. I immediately thought I had gone too far, but it was too late. Without a word, my mother-in-law went back to her room looking upset. I did reflect on it, but I was also shocked to be spoken about in such a way regarding my infertility. The next morning, my mother-in-law didn't come out of her room, perhaps still angry. Oak had a 3-day business trip starting that day, so he just called out, "I'm leaving," through her door. "Please don't throw cold water on Mom's great-grandchild fever. She hasn't been the same since Birch left. You were worried too, right?" "I was, but if we spend all our money like this, we'll have nothing left when Birch and Maple arrive, right?" Oak's face immediately turned sour. "Are you saying my earnings are too low?" "That's not what I'm saying at all." Oak just said, "Fine," and left with a look of dissatisfaction. Discussions about money always end up like this. Since I'm the one managing our finances, I can't help but think ahead. Of course, there's a reason for that. We've been married for 13 years. Oak has provided me with a very comfortable life. "Your part-time income is for you to enjoy," Oak had always told me. So, I saved everything beyond what I needed for myself. Even though it's in my name, I consider it our shared property. But then, Oak's company's performance declined, and over the last 5 years, his salary has dropped to 2/3 of what it was when we first got married. While there's uncertainty whether his company will last until his retirement, he doesn't seem to consider changing jobs. For appearances in front of my mother-in-law, my husband couldn't give up his title as a department head. Now I'm the one paying the rent, and he covers the living expenses. We've kept this from my mother-in-law to save my husband's face. That day I left work a bit early to apologize to my mother-in-law. When I got home, she was already sitting at the dining table waiting for me. "I'm sorry about yesterday. I may have gone too far," I admitted. But my mother-in-law remained silent. Instead, she blindsided me with unexpected news. "Birch and Maple are returning for a hometown childbirth. Please vacate," my mother-in-law declared in a chilly tone. The eldest son and his wife were set to arrive in 3 days. Perplexed and stunned, I asked, "I have to leave?" She affirmed, "Yes, we don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while. Birch and his family will be living here. Make sure you're out by tomorrow." The realization hit me hard. I had never truly been accepted into the family. Since the day I got married, I had always been treated as an outsider. The news of Birch's return for the birth made it clear. "You barren failure," my mother-in-law continued. "You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Oak is tired of you too. Maybe he's getting along well with a new girlfriend by now." Shocked, I gulped down my saliva, contemplating the possibility of my relationship with my husband growing distant. Could this be a trap I fell into? Thinking my husband would never, and I remembered that up until a year ago, he never had overnight business trips. "All right, I'll get it done tonight," I said, grabbing my bag and leaving the house to walk aimlessly. I needed to calm my severely shaken heart. Worried about my husband, I tried calling his cell phone. Despite my mother-in-law's words, I still wanted to talk to him, but he didn't answer no matter how many times I rang. I dialed his office only to learn that he had taken a couple of days off. My mother-in-law's words began to ring more true. Could he really be on a trip with another woman? Dark thoughts crowded my mind, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down my face. Staggering along, I noticed the tavern behind the station, a place we used to frequent when we first moved here. "It's still here," I thought as I entered. "Welcome." The tavern owner's expression clouded briefly upon seeing me, then he nodded in recognition. "Hey, long time no see." "It's been about 8 years. I used to come here a lot with my husband," I said. "Yes, it's been a while. I remember you," he replied. I couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of relief. "Can I get a beer and a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please?" I asked the owner. He, as usual, was a man of few words, but nodded in response. I took a sip of the cold beer, letting its chill settle in, while savoring the grilled chicken in front of me. As I relaxed, I pulled out my phone, and the screensaver flashed a photo of Birch on his 18th birthday, looking sharp in the slim suit we'd picked out together. A pang of longing hit me as I wished we could have been closer as a family. The beer helped wash down the heaviness in my chest, taking the sting of the day's heartache with it. Could I really leave tomorrow? I thought to myself, my mind running through the next steps. I pulled up moving companies on my phone, booked one for the following day, and saved 2 junk buyers for later. Changing the screensaver felt like a cleansing act, the image on my phone no longer tainting my thoughts. The food and beer tasted incredible, but the weight of everything was still there. I decided I'd sort things out when I got home. As I was leaving the tavern, a voice called out to me from behind. A young waitress, breathless from running, caught up with me. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Thompson?" she asked, confirming my identity when I glanced at her confused expression. She dropped the bombshell that shook me to my core. My husband was having an affair with one of their employees. We exchanged contact details, and she promised to keep me updated. Her words echoed my mother-in-law's earlier accusations. Instead of feeling devastated, a sharp and unrelenting anger rose within me. It was time to face this head-on. I didn't waste another second. I immediately booked the moving company for the following day and made up my mind to leave that day. Whether it was a conspiracy involving my mother-in-law and Birch, or my husband's betrayal was his own doing, I didn't owe him anything anymore. Back home, I began packing without hesitation, and by midnight, I had everything ready to go. The movers arrived exactly on time. I made my intentions clear. I was leaving for good. They took everything I had bought, erasing every trace of me from that house. My mother-in-law panicked, but I stood firm. "I'm taking everything I bought. You can start fresh tomorrow," I said, suppressing a laugh at the absurdity of it all. She complained loudly, but there was nothing she could do. All that was left behind were piles of baby gear and her old dresser pieces of her life that predated our marriage. "Well then, I bid you farewell. There should be no trace of me left. Enjoy your life with Oak, Birch, and his family," I declared before walking out, leaving her stunned behind me. I left the keys on the table as I exited the house. The movers took my things, and I stayed with a colleague for a while, feeling a strange sense of completion. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in a long while. A week passed before I heard from my husband. I couldn't help but wonder if he was scheming with that other woman. While he hesitated, I received a call from the young woman at the tavern. "I got a photo. I'll send it to you," she said. The photo showed my husband chatting up a much older woman at the tavern. Perhaps out of a sense of justice, the young woman must have followed them after they closed. Attached was another photo, this time of the two of them entering a hotel. I stared at the photos, feeling a cold emptiness wash over me. Even now, the cheating continues, I thought bitterly. Any last flicker of affection I had for my husband faded in an instant. I asked for the woman's name and had her address looked up. The next day, armed with all the evidence of the affair, my husband called. "Willow, where are you? Birch and his family are here too. Aren't you going to come home soon?" "No, I'm not coming back. Your mom told me to leave. I'm done here. Birch and his family are going to live with you now, right?" I knew it. Birch and his family were out of money and looking to crash at our place. I heard that after graduating from a vocational school, they've been hopping from job to job and now they're working part-time. "No, I want you back, Willow. I went to the pharmacy and they said you're off for a bit." "Oh, played to crash, yeah, I'm fine. So don't worry about me. Your mom and Birch didn't like me, right? I reckon they're happy to have the place to themselves without me around." My snide comment left my husband speechless. He knew his mother and Birch never accepted me as family, but pretended not to see it. "Well, all right, I have something to say, so I'll come back there." Once my husband replied with a relieved please in his voice. Days later, I returned to the house for the first time in a long while. Some new pieces of furniture and appliances were inside. When Birch and Maple saw me, they just nodded from their seats on the sofa without getting up. As I took a seat, my mother-in-law glared at me with a scary look on her face. The atmosphere was tense, and just as I thought to get things done and leave quickly, Birch spoke up. "What are you doing here? You took everything from the house. What kind of monster does that? Dad's been supporting you and you've had it easy." I sighed. "I took everything because I paid for it. I wanted to remove all traces of me just as you wanted, right?" "That's crazy. There's no way you could afford all that just working part-time at the pharmacy." My husband said. When I glanced at him, he started talking as if he'd resigned himself. "We've been getting by on what Willow and I both make for a little while now. Then the stuff you took should be both yours instead of just yours." Instead of my speechless husband, I decided to speak up. Oak's company has been doing poorly, and his salary plummeted. That's why for the past 5 years I've been covering what's missing, but that wasn't enough, and now I'm the one paying our rent. My mother-in-law looked at my husband with surprise. "I'm not just a part-timer. I'm a part-time pharmacist, and the pay is quite good. I'm making more than Oak now." At my words, my husband awkwardly looked away. My mother-in-law's eyes were frantically shifting between my husband and me. "From now on, Birch, you'll be paying the rent. You're going to live here, right? After all the help your grandma was given, it's time for you to take care of her." Birch looked at me with a shocked expression when I dropped the news. Suddenly, he said, "Rent? How much is it?" "It's $5,600. Good luck. Since it seems my role as a mother is over, I don't have an obligation to take care of you anymore. Pull yourself together. You're going to be a father soon." Birch murmured with a shake of his head. "That's impossible." It was Maple who raised her voice upon hearing this. "Wait, weren't we supposed to live here for free, covering rent and living expenses?" I almost burst out laughing. "Don't worry, Maple. You can move to a cheaper place. Oak still makes a decent salary." Hearing this, Maple's face relaxed a bit. "Oh, since I'll be leaving, you Oak's life might still get tough with your mistress, huh?" At that, Maple finally broke down in tears. It was my husband who panicked. "What? What are you talking about?" Maple spoke up, her voice steady but laced with bitterness. "Oh, your mother told me about the new woman. I suppose it's time to end my role as a wife, too." My husband must have thought there was no proof. It hadn't even been 10 days since I left, yet here we were, already facing this. "Wouldn't that hurt Ivy if she heard you?" I added. my tone sharp. But Maple just waved it off. I'll get in touch about that later. When Ivy's name slipped out of my mouth, I saw Oak flinch. He realized I knew everything. His face flushed and he sank his head into his hands. "This is not the time to talk about divorce papers," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Well then, I'll be leaving now. Please, speak to me through a lawyer." With that, I grabbed my bag, ready to walk away. Oak and Birch said nothing, both silent as I made my way toward the door. But then, my mother-in-law's voice rose. She stood up suddenly, slamming her hands on the table. "What the hell? It's all your fault. Our home is in shambles." Her words stung, and I couldn't help but feel my temper flare. "It was you who told me to leave. It was you who said Oak had another woman. You were the one who interfered with my relationship with Birch. All of this is on you." I could feel the heat of frustration rising in my chest. If only I had been more assertive with Birch, perhaps things would have been different. "Birch has nothing to do with this," she shot back. "It's time for you to step up, Oak. He's going through a hard time. You should support him as his wife. Take responsibility as a family member." Her words were like a slap in the face. If she hadn't pushed Birch back into the picture, if she hadn't hinted at Oak's affair, I would still be here, supporting Oak, believing in our family. I turned to Oak, the man who had once been my world. "Where are you, Birch? Why are you still here? It's all your mother's fault." My mother-in-law's lips tightened, her body trembling with frustration. I couldn't bear to stay a moment longer. I slipped past her, leaving the room without another word. Oak agreed to the divorce more quickly than I expected. It seemed my determination had worn him down, and he couldn't argue with the overwhelming evidence of his affair. Shortly after, Birch and Maple moved back to their own apartment, leaving my mother-in-law behind. Oak seemed to be considering remarriage, but Ivy was furious over the alimony and his request that she live with his mother. From what I heard, they were even discussing putting my mother-in-law in a care facility. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but in a way, it made sense. After all the love she'd poured into her son and grandson, it felt sad to think they were ready to abandon her now. Perhaps she had outlived her purpose in their eyes. If my mother-in-law had kept quiet back then and allowed things to unfold naturally, maybe I would still be living in that house, even after the divorce. Birch sent me an apology letter. He wrote about how, as a child, he had longed to be spoiled more, how he couldn't talk to me because of his grandmother's dislike for me, and how happy he was when I attended his school events. It made me think. Maybe I should have reached out to him more. Maybe our relationship could have been different. Despite everything, I silently wished for Birch to find happiness in his life. I've returned to my work as a pharmacist and found an apartment close to my job. I couldn't bear to keep the furniture and appliances I had taken with me, so I had them picked up and disposed of by a junk removal service. Now, without my mother-in-law's constant interference, I feel a sense of peace. For the first time in a long while, I'm living for myself. I want to be happy, not for anyone else, but for me. Is family really worth all the pain? Can loyalty ever outweigh the personal cost? In this story, Willow is confronted by her mother-in-law's harsh rejection, leading her to make the difficult decision to leave her home and start over. The reality is harsh. Willow has always been an outsider in her own marriage, constantly undermined by her mother-in-law, who manipulates situations to keep control. After years of enduring this emotional abuse, she finally realizes that her peace and happiness are more important than staying in a toxic situation. From a psychological perspective, Willow's actions are understandable. She spent years trying to fit in, only to find that no matter how hard she worked, she was never truly accepted by her husband's family. When faced with betrayal both from her mother-in-law and possibly from Oak, Willow chooses herself. It's a hard decision, but one that could be considered an act of self-preservation. Should she have fought harder for her marriage, even after the emotional manipulation from her mother-in-law? Could she have found a way to repair the relationship with Oak, or was leaving the only viable choice? On the other hand, was it the right thing for Willow to take everything she had paid for, even if it seemed justified in her mind? Or did it cross a moral line? What do you think, everyone? Was Willow right to leave everything behind? Or should she have tried to rebuild the relationship with Oak and his family? Do you believe some relationships are simply beyond repair? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep the conversation going, and stay tuned for more stories like this.
The letter arrived like a bomb wrapped in cream-colored stationery, my mother's looping handwriting as delicate as the lies she'd always told. 13 years of silence, and now this showing up in my mailbox on the anniversary of Dad's death, no less. The universe has a sick sense of humor. I'm Rowan, and this wasn't how I planned to spend my morning at Mitchell & Associates Investment Group. The corner office I'd earned through years of calculated moves suddenly felt too small, too warm. Miss Mitchell? Your 10 o'clock is waiting. My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, but I barely heard her. My fingers traced the edge of the envelope, fighting the urge to shred it into confetti. The return address burned into my retinas, 1542, Oakwood Drive. The house where everything fell apart. Reschedule it, I snapped, immediately regretting my tone. Please. Family emergency. The letter trembled in my hands as I sliced it open. The scent of her perfume wafted up, jasmine and vanilla, the same fragrance she wore when she told 12-year-old me she was leaving with Henry. When she chose him over her own daughter. Dearest Rowan, the letter began. I almost laughed at that. Dearest. As if she had any right to terms of endearment. I know I have no right to reach out after all this time. But things have changed. I've changed. Henry and I are struggling, and I need to make things right. Please, just one meeting. There are things you need to know about your father's death, about the company, about everything. My coffee went cold on the desk as I read the letter 3 more times. Each word felt like a needle under my skin. The company? What could she possibly know about Dad's transportation empire that crashed and burned after his death? The business Henry had gotten his hands on while my mother stood by, watching it all crumble? The phone rang. Uncle Bill's name flashed on the screen. Of course he'd call today, he never forgot what this date meant to me. Hey, kiddo, his warm voice filled the line. Thought you might want company for lunch. I stared at the letter, my throat tight. She wrote to me, Uncle Bill. After all these years, she just. The silence on his end spoke volumes. Finally, what does she want? To talk. Says she needs to tell me something about Dad's death. My laugh came out harsh. Convenient timing, isn't it? Now that she and Henry are struggling. Rowan. His voice carried that gentle warning tone he'd used since I was 12. Whatever you're thinking. I'm thinking it's time for some answers. The words tasted like metal in my mouth. I'm thinking about how Henry systematically dismantled everything Dad built while she watched. I'm thinking maybe it's time they both faced what they did. Revenge won't bring him back, sweetheart. No. I smoothed the letter flat against my desk. But it might bring justice. My phone buzzed with a text, another message from my mother. An address for a cafe downtown, asking to meet tomorrow. My fingers hovered over the keys. I have to go, Uncle Bill. I'll call you later. I ended the call before he could protest, before his wisdom could pierce the armor of rage I'd spent years building. The city sprawled below my office window, oblivious to the war brewing in my heart. I typed my response, tomorrow. 2 p.m. Don't be late. The send button felt like a trigger being pulled. 13 years of carefully constructed peace, shattered by a single cream-colored envelope. But maybe that peace had always been an illusion. Maybe it was time to finish what started the day my father died, the day my mother chose Henry, the day everything changed. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. I had 24 hours to prepare for battle, and this time, I wouldn't be the one left bleeding. The cafe buzzed with lunchtime chatter, but the corner booth might as well have been a tomb. My mother sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a cooling cappuccino. Looking exactly like the woman who walked out 13 years ago, just with deeper lines around her eyes. You look so much like your father. Her voice cracked on the last word. I kept my face blank, the way I'd practiced in boardroom negotiations. You didn't ask me here to discuss resemblances. She flinched. Good. Let her feel something for once. Her designer blouse hung loose on her frame. And her wedding ring, the gaudy thing Henry had replaced Dad's band with, slipped when she lifted her cup. Henry doesn't know I'm here, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. He's changed, Rowan. Everything's changed. Changed like when he convinced you to sign over Dad's company? Or changed like when you let him ship me off to Uncle Bill's without a fight? The cup clattered against the saucer. That's not fair. I was grieving. For 3 months. I leaned forward. Dad was barely cold in his grave when you married him. When you let him start dismantling everything Dad built. A young family walked past our booth, their little boy laughing. My mother's eyes followed them, something raw and hungry in her expression. That's when I noticed the bruise, poorly concealed beneath her collar. Henry has a son now, she said suddenly. Your half-brother. Evan. He's 10. The news hit like a slap. A brother. A child who got to keep his mother while I lost mine. Congratulations, I said flatly. Is that why you're here? To play happy families? No, She reached into her purse, hands trembling. There are papers. Documents from before your father died. Henry made me hide them, but I kept copies. I think they prove. Mom? A sharp voice cut through the cafe. Jessica Larson stood at our table, Henry's daughter from his first marriage, her perfect features twisted in suspicion. What are you doing here? My mother's face drained of color. The papers disappeared back into her purse. Jessica, dear. I was just having lunch with your abandoned daughter? Jessica's smile was razor-sharp. How sweet. Dad will be so interested to hear about this. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. Still Daddy's little spy, Jessica? Some things never change. Some people never learn their place, she shot back. Mom, we're leaving. Now. Mom. The word landed like acid between us. My mother rose on shaky legs, avoiding my eyes. I'm sorry, Rowan. I shouldn't have. This was a mistake. The papers, I said quietly. What do they prove? Jessica grabbed my mother's arm. She said we're leaving. I watched them go, my mother's shoulders hunched, Jessica's manicured hand steering her toward the door. But I'd seen enough. The bruise. The weight loss. The terror when Jessica appeared. And somewhere in that purse, documents that might explain why Dad's death never felt quite right. My phone buzzed, Uncle Bill again. I let it ring, staring at the half-empty cappuccino my mother left behind. The same way she'd left me. But this time was different. This time, I saw the cracks in her careful facade. Whatever Henry had done to Dad's company, to our family, it was worse than I'd imagined. And my mother, for all her cowardice, had tried to tell me something today. I dropped cash on the table and headed for my car, already planning my next move. Jessica would run straight to Henry, which meant my mother would pay for this meeting. But she'd chosen to come anyway. After 13 years of silence, that had to mean something. The documents she mentioned were the key. I just had to figure out how to get them before Henry discovered their existence. And maybe, just maybe, I needed to meet this half-brother of mine. Evan. An innocent caught in Henry's web, just like I had been. My phone buzzed again. This time, I answered. Uncle Bill? I need your help with something. Uncle Bill's study smelled of leather and old books, just like it had when I was 12. But tonight, spread across his desk were copies of documents that made my stomach turn. Bank statements, transfer records, death certificates. Your mother dropped these off an hour ago. He stood at the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. She was hysterical. Said Henry found out about your meeting. I picked up the medical examiner's report from Dad's accident. Heart attack while driving seemed too neat, too convenient. Especially with these bank records showing systematic withdrawals from the company accounts starting 3 months before his death. Did she say anything else? Just that she was sorry. And that she had to get back to Evan. Uncle Bill turned, his face grave. She had a black eye, Rowan. The paper crumpled in my fist. Henry? A sharp knock interrupted us. Aunt Clara burst in, her face pale. Turn on the news. Now. The flat screen flickered to life. Henry stood on the steps of what used to be Mitchell Transportation's headquarters, now renamed Larson Enterprises. His smile was razor-sharp as cameras flashed. Proud to announce our expansion into international markets, he was saying. This merger represents everything my late friend Philip Mitchell dreamed of for his company. Bastard, I whispered. There's more, Aunt Clara said softly. The camera panned to show my mother standing beside Henry, her bruises carefully concealed by makeup. And next to her, Jessica, wearing a diamond ring that looked eerily familiar. Is that, my voice caught. Your grandmother's ring, Uncle Bill confirmed. The one your father gave your mother. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, stay away from my family. Or the next accident won't be your father's. H. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Uncle Bill reached for the phone, but I pulled back. He's admitting it, I said. He's practically confessing to killing Dad. Rowan. Look at these numbers. I spread the bank statements across the desk. 3 months before Dad died, Henry started moving money. Small amounts at first, then larger. The day after the funeral, he married Mom and took control of everything. You can't prove any of this means? I can. A new voice joined us. We turned to find Jessica leaning against the doorframe, twisting my grandmother's ring on her finger. Uncle Bill moved protectively in front of me. How did you get in here? Your housekeeper knows me from the old days. Her smile was cold. I came to make a deal. With the person wearing stolen property? I shot back. With the person who has proof that your precious daddy wasn't as clean as you think. She pulled an envelope from her designer bag. Henry didn't just take over the company, Rowan. He saved it from your father's gambling debts. You're lying. Am I? She tossed the envelope onto the desk. Daddy Dearest had a secret account in the Caymans. He was bleeding the company dry long before Henry stepped in. Mom, your mother, knew. That's why she turned to Henry for help. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Bank statements, betting slips, loans, all in my father's name. Why are you showing me this? Jessica's facade cracked slightly. Because Henry's going to destroy everything, including my mother's shares in the company. He's already started with your mother. I want him stopped, but I need your help. The room felt too small, too full of ghosts and lies. Dad's gambling. Mom's betrayal. Henry's violence. And now Jessica, offering an alliance I never saw coming. What exactly are you proposing? Uncle Bill asked. A trade. Jessica twisted the ring off her finger and set it on the desk. This, plus everything I know about Henry's dealings, in exchange for your help taking him down legally. Through the board, the shareholders, whatever it takes. I stared at my grandmother's ring, remembering how it looked on Mom's hand before everything fell apart. Why should I trust you? Because Henry hurt my mother too. Jessica's mask slipped further, showing something raw underneath. And because I know what really happened the night your father died. The news droned on in the background, Henry's voice a constant reminder of everything he'd stolen. But now, finally, the pieces were falling into place. I picked up the ring. Tell me everything. Jessica's revelation about Dad's gambling felt like acid in my veins, but what she said next burned worse. Henry didn't just find your father that night. He orchestrated the whole thing. We sat in Uncle Bill's study, dawn creeping through the windows. The documents were spread across the desk like a roadmap of betrayal. Dad was meeting his bookie, Jessica continued, her composure cracking. Henry knew about it. He'd been tracking the gambling for months, waiting for the right moment. Uncle Bill's hand gripped the back of my chair. How do you know all this? Because I helped him. Jessica's voice broke. I was young, angry about my mother. Henry promised if I helped him take over Mitchell Transportation, he'd make sure I got what I deserved. A knock at the door made us all jump. Aunt Clara entered, her face ashen. Rowan, your mother's here. She's with Evan. My half-brother. The child who got everything I lost. Send them away, I said, but Jessica grabbed my arm. Wait. Evan might be the key. Henry's been moving money into trust funds under his name. If we can prove. He's 10 years old, I snapped. I'm not using a child as a weapon. Like Henry used you? Jessica's words hit their mark. I found them in the kitchen. Mom looked worse than at the cafe, her movements jerky and nervous. But Evan, he had Dad's eyes. He sat at the counter, homework spread out, looking so normal it hurt. Hi, he said, glancing up. Are you really my sister? Mom flinched. Evan, honey, why don't you go watch TV while I... No. The word came out sharper than I intended. Let him stay. We're all family, aren't we, Mom? She touched her wedding ring, Henry's ring, like a talisman. Henry's planning something. He's been meeting with lawyers, changing accounts. When he found out about the documents I gave Bill. He hurt you. It wasn't a question. Evan's pencil stopped moving. His shoulders tensed, and suddenly I saw what I'd been missing. The careful way he held himself. The watchfulness in those familiar eyes. Does Henry hurt you too, Evan? The silence was answer enough. Rowan, please, Mom whispered. I didn't know what to do. He controls everything, the money, the house, our lives. I thought I could protect Evan if I just... Like you protected me? The words tasted like ash. Jessica appeared in the doorway, her presence making Mom shrink further. Henry's on his way. Someone at your office tipped him off about the meeting. Evan's homework scattered as Mom grabbed his arm. We have to go. He can't know we were here. No. I moved between them and the door. You're not running this time. Not from him, not from the truth about Dad. What truth? Evan asked. Mom went pale. Rowan, don't. Your father killed mine. The words hung in the air like smoke. And our mother let him do it. Evan looked at Mom, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. Is that true? Before she could answer, car tires crunched on the gravel outside. Uncle Bill appeared with my coat. Back door. Now. Take them to the lake house. We'll handle Henry. I'm staying, Jessica said. He'll suspect something if I'm gone. I grabbed Mom's purse, Evan's backpack. Why are you really helping us, Jessica? Her smile was bitter. Because Henry killed my mother too. Heart attack, just like your father. I just couldn't prove it, until now. Headlights swept across the windows. Mom clutched Evan's hand, and in that moment, I saw the mother she could have been, should have been, to me. We have to go, I said, taking Evan's other hand. All of us. As we slipped into the pre-dawn darkness, I heard Henry's voice booming through the house. But for the first time since Dad died, I wasn't running from the past. I was running toward justice. And this time, I wasn't alone. The lake house felt like a fortress of secrets. 3 days we'd been here, and each hour brought new revelations from Mom's files. I sat at the kitchen table, spreadsheets and bank statements creating a paper trail of destruction. You should eat something, Mom said, hovering nearby with a plate of sandwiches. Playing mother now, when it was far too late. Evan sat cross-legged on the couch, headphones on, trying to disappear into his video game. He hadn't spoken much since learning about Dad's death. My phone buzzed, Jessica's burner number. Henry's making moves. He's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. Something about restructuring the company's assets. He's going to transfer everything before we can stop him. I glanced at the documents spread before me. We need more time. We don't have it. Jessica's voice cracked. He's been asking questions about Mom's death. I think he knows I found her medical records. A crash from the living room made us all jump. Evan stood amid the remains of a glass of water, shaking. Someone's outside. I moved to the window, careful to stay hidden behind the curtain. A black SUV idled at the end of the driveway, its headlights off. Get your things, I told them. Now. Mom grabbed the files while I shoved laptops into bags. Evan stood frozen, staring at the door. It's okay, I said, taking his hand. We're going to. The window exploded inward. Mom screamed. I pulled Evan down as glass rained around us. Back door, I hissed, pushing them toward the kitchen. But as we reached it, headlights swept across the yard. Another SUV. My phone rang, Uncle Bill's ringtone. I answered on speaker as we huddled in the dark kitchen. Henry's gone insane, he said without preamble. He's filed kidnapping charges against you, Rowan. Claims you took Evan against court orders. What court orders? The ones he forged this morning, backdated to last year. He's got judges in his pocket, sweetheart. You need to bring Evan back now. Mom clutched Evan closer. No. He'll hurt him. If we go back, we lose everything, I said. The evidence about Dad, about Jessica's mother. If you don't, Uncle Bill cut in, you'll lose your freedom. Henry's serious about the kidnapping charges. And he's named Jessica as a co-conspirator. The sound of car doors slamming outside. Heavy footsteps on gravel. There's another way, Evan said suddenly. His voice was steady, older than his years. Dad's laptop. The one in his study. He never lets anyone touch it, but I know the password. I've seen him enter it. Mom stared at him. What's on it? Everything. I've watched him sometimes, late at night. He keeps files about everyone, you, Rowan, Jessica's mom. He calls it his insurance. A fist pounded on the front door. Mrs. Larson? This is the police. We have a warrant. Jessica's voice crackled through the phone. I can get to the laptop. But you have to create a distraction. Give them Evan, let them think they've won. No, Mom and I said simultaneously. Trust me, Jessica insisted. Henry will be focused on you, Rowan. On punishing you. He won't expect me to betray him. Not his loyal daughter. The back door handle jiggled. Time was up. I looked at Evan, seeing Dad's strength in his face. Your choice, buddy. What do you want to do? He squared his shoulders. I want him to pay. For everything. Mom touched his cheek, then mine. For the first time in 13 years, I saw my mother instead of Henry's wife. Together, then. I nodded to Evan. Remember the password? Phoenix rising, he said. Because Dad always says he rises from the ashes. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. The door burst open, flashlights cutting through the darkness. As officers swarmed in, I met Jessica's eyes through the phone screen and gave an imperceptible nod. The game was changing. Henry thought he was the Phoenix, but he'd forgotten one thing: in order to rise from the ashes, first you have to burn. The interrogation room smelled of stale coffee and defeat. Across the table, Detective Martinez spread out photos like playing cards: the lake house, Mom's bruises, Evan's scared face. Kidnapping. Conspiracy. Corporate espionage. She tapped each charge with a manicured nail. Mr. Larson has quite a story about you, Miss Mitchell. Through the one-way glass, I sensed Henry watching, savoring his victory. Mom and Evan were somewhere in the building, separated, probably terrified. And Jessica, radio silence since the raid. Where's my lawyer? On his way. But we both know how this looks. Martinez leaned forward. A successful businesswoman suddenly snaps, manipulates her troubled mother, endangers a child. I was protecting them. From what? A respected CEO? A man who, by all accounts, saved your father's failing company? The door opened. Henry walked in, followed by Uncle Bill. The betrayal in Bill's eyes cut deeper than any knife. I had to tell them, Rowan, Uncle Bill said softly. About your obsession with Henry, your paranoid theories about your father's death. My chest tightened. This wasn't right. Uncle Bill knew the truth, he'd seen the evidence. William has been very helpful, Henry said, his voice dripping concern. Explaining your mental state since your father's passing. How you never accepted his gambling problem, his suicide. Suicide? The word exploded from my lips. You murdered him. Martinez's pen scratched across her notepad. Henry shook his head sadly. You see? This is exactly what we're worried about. The delusions, the accusations. Just like your father near the end. My phone buzzed in the evidence bag on Martinez's desk. Jessica's burner number. But the detective reached it first, reading the message aloud. It's done. I'm sorry, Rowan. He gave me no choice. Henry's smile widened fractionally. Of course. He'd gotten to Jessica too, probably threatened her mother's insurance payout or worse. Your accomplice seems to have had a change of heart, Martinez noted. The evidence bag also contained Mom's files, but I knew without looking they'd been altered or replaced. Henry was too thorough, too connected. He'd planned this perfectly. Where's my mother? I asked, hating how my voice shook. Safe, Henry said. Getting the help she needs. And Evan is back where he belongs, with his father. You're hurting them. I'm protecting my family. He turned to Martinez. Just like I tried to protect Philip Mitchell from his gambling debts. Some people simply can't be saved from themselves. Uncle Bill wouldn't meet my eyes. Had Henry threatened him too? Or worse, convinced him I really was losing my mind? Your father's suicide note, Martinez said, sliding a familiar piece of paper across the table. Found in Mr. Turner's possession. Care to explain why you never mentioned it? The signature was perfect, Dad's exact handwriting. Henry must have been planning this for years, collecting samples, waiting for the right moment. That's not real, I whispered, but doubt crept in. What if I had been wrong? What if Dad's gambling, his death, everything I thought I knew? We can help you, Rowan, Henry said gently. There are excellent facilities. Go to hell. Martinez gathered her files. I'll give you a moment with your uncle. Mr. Larson, if you'll come with me. They left. The silence stretched between Bill and me like a chasm. What did he threaten you with? I asked. Rowan, please. Stop fighting. For your own good, just stop. Did you know? About Dad's gambling? Was I wrong about everything? He reached across the table, but I pulled away. Sometimes the truth isn't what we want it to be. My last ally, gone. And somewhere in this building, Mom and Evan were alone with their abuser. Jessica had betrayed us. And every shred of evidence we'd gathered had vanished or been twisted against me. The worst part? For just a moment, I wondered if Henry was right. If grief and anger had warped my memories, turned coincidence into conspiracy. But then I remembered Dad's eyes the last time I saw him alive. Trust your instincts, kiddo, he'd said. The truth always rises. Like a phoenix from the ashes. Detective Martinez's office door burst open. Jessica strode in, Henry's laptop clutched to her chest, Aunt Clara right behind her. Sorry I'm late, Jessica said, her smile razor-sharp. Traffic was murder. Henry's face drained of color. Jessica, what are you? Phoenix rising, Dad. She set the laptop on Martinez's desk. Isn't that what you always say? Right before you destroy someone? Martinez looked between us, her professional mask cracking. What's going on? Show them, I said quietly. Jessica opened the laptop, pulled up files. Everything's here. The offshore accounts, the forged documents, the real medical reports for both Philip Mitchell and my mother. Henry lunged for the computer, but Uncle Bill caught his arm. Don't, Bill said, his voice heavy with regret. It's over, Henry. You were in on this? Henry snarled. Had to make you think you'd won. Bill's grip tightened. Had to keep you focused on Rowan while Jessica got what we needed. The office door opened again. Mom walked in with Evan, her spine straight for the first time in years. I've given my statement, Detective. About Philip's murder, about the abuse, everything. Henry laughed, but it sounded hollow. You have nothing. I destroyed all the evidence. Except your insurance policy, Evan said. The files you kept to control everyone. I watched you type that password so many times, Dad. Did you ever wonder why? Martinez was already scrolling through the files, her expression hardening. Mr. Larson, you need to sit down. You ungrateful little, Henry wrenched free from Bill, lunging at Jessica. She stepped aside, letting him crash into the desk. Ungrateful? Jessica's voice cracked. You killed my mother. Made it look like a heart attack, just like you did with Philip Mitchell. Because they both figured out what you really were. They were weak, Henry spat. Your mother was going to leave, take everything. And Philip? He was going to expose the embezzlement, ruin everything I'd built. You built nothing, I said. You just destroyed what others created. Martinez stood, reaching for her cuffs. Henry Larson, you're under arrest. You're all just like them. Henry grabbed for the laptop, but this time Mom moved fastest, snatching it away. No more, she said. No more controlling us. No more hurting my children. Your children? He sneered. The daughter you abandoned? The son you were too weak to protect? Yes. Mom's voice strengthened. My children. The ones I failed. The ones I'm finally standing up for. Henry's hand went to his jacket. The glint of metal made my heart stop. Dad, don't. Evan's warning came too late. The gun appeared so fast even Martinez was caught off guard. Henry backed toward the door, weapons sweeping across the room. You think I didn't plan for this? His smile was manic. I always have a contingency. Always rise from the ashes. Now, Jessica, delete those files. It's too late, Jessica said. I already sent copies to the FBI, the SEC, and every major news outlet. The gun steadied on her. You're lying. Check your phone. As if on cue, Henry's cell buzzed. Breaking news alerts. His face contorted as he read the headlines. The shot rang out before anyone could move. But Henry hadn't pulled the trigger, Martinez had. He crumpled, clutching his shoulder, the gun clattering away. "That's for my sister," Martinez said, keeping her weapon trained on him as other officers rushed in. "Karen Martinez. Your first wife. The suicide that made me become a detective." As they led Henry away, Mom pulled Evan and me close. Jessica stood apart, watching her father's destruction with empty eyes. "Jessica," I called. "Thank you." She turned, Dad's ring glinting on her finger. "I didn't do it for you. But maybe we can both stop living in the ashes now." Martinez collected the laptop, now crucial evidence. "Miss Mitchell, we'll need statements from everyone." I nodded, feeling the weight of years lifting. The truth had finally risen, but not like a phoenix, like the sun after a long, dark night. Mom squeezed my hand. "I'm so sorry, Rowan. For everything." "I know," I said. And for the first time, I believed her. The Mitchell Transportation Building looked different in the morning light, its glass facade reflecting clouds instead of shadows. Dad's name still crowned the entrance, freshly restored after Henry's arrest. "Ready?" Uncle Bill asked, holding the door. The lobby buzzed with activity, employees, reporters, shareholders gathering for the emergency board meeting. Jessica stood at the reception desk, handling the chaos with practiced ease. She'd traded Henry's flashy style for something more subdued, more genuine. "The board's waiting," she said, falling into step beside me. Mom's already inside. The boardroom felt smaller than I remembered from childhood visits with Dad. Now I sat in his chair, facing the people who'd let Henry destroy everything he built. "The vote is unanimous," the head of the board announced. "Mitchell Transportation will be returned to Mitchell Family Control, with Rowan Mitchell as CEO and Jessica Larson as COO." Mom squeezed my hand under the table. She looked different now, lighter, despite the shadows under her eyes. The divorce papers had been signed yesterday. As the room cleared, Evan lingered by the window. "Does this mean I have to work here someday?" "Only if you want to," I said. "You can be anything." He nodded, considering this new freedom. Henry's lawyer called again. "About visiting." "That's your choice too." Jessica gathered her files, her movements precise. "The prosecutors want my testimony next week. About Karen, my mother." "You don't have to do it alone," I said. "I know." She touched Dad's old nameplate on the desk. "Funny how revenge doesn't feel like I thought it would." "Because it wasn't revenge," Mom said quietly. "It was justice. For all of us." The door opened. Detective Martinez entered, carrying a familiar envelope. "Found this in Henry's personal safe. Thought you should have it." Inside was a photograph, Dad and me at his desk, both laughing at some forgotten joke. On the back, his handwriting, "For Rowan, trust your instincts. The truth always rises." He knew, I realized. He was gathering evidence against Henry before he died. "And Henry kept the photo as insurance," Jessica added. "Typical. Always keeping score." Martinez nodded to the boardroom window. "Speaking of scores, you've got company." Outside, protesters gathered. Former employees Henry had fired, families he'd destroyed, all demanding answers. Their anger was justified, but it wasn't my burden anymore. "What do we do?" Evan asked. "We rebuild," I said. "Not just the company. Everything." Jessica straightened her jacket. "I'll handle the press." "I'll help," Mom offered. When Jessica hesitated, Mom added, "Please. Let me try to fix something." They left together, an unlikely alliance born from shared wounds. Evan followed, already comfortable in his role as the bridge between our fractured families. Uncle Bill studied the photo in my hands. You know, Phil once told me his biggest regret was not teaching you everything about the business before. Well, he taught me enough. I set the photo on Dad's desk, my desk now. He taught me to trust my instincts. And where are those instincts leading you now? Through the window, I watched Mom and Jessica addressing the crowd, Evan standing tall beside them. The truth had risen, yes, but not like Henry's phoenix, burning everything in its path. Instead, it had grown like a garden through concrete, transforming wreckage into something new. Forward, I said. But not alone. Martinez paused at the door. Henry's sentencing is next month. You planning to speak? I thought of Henry in his prison cell, still plotting, still believing in his own mythology. Let him. His stories had no power here anymore. No, I decided. I have better things to say. The morning sun caught Dad's nameplate, throwing light across the boardroom. Outside, the crowd was dispersing, not in anger but in hope. Inside, the ghosts of the past finally began to fade. I opened Dad's old ledger, empty pages waiting. Time to write a new story. Not of revenge or rising phoenixes, but of truth and transformation, of families broken and rebuilt, of gardens growing through concrete. Time to trust my instincts. The voicemail played again, Lisa's words slicing through my kitchen like a serrated knife. I left her at your house. I just can't deal with her anymore. She's your problem now. The timestamp read 4:47 p.m. It was now 5:15. My hands shook as I grabbed my car keys, knocking over the mixing bowl I'd been using for Emily's birthday cupcakes. Pink batter splattered across the floor, but I didn't stop to clean it. I'm Zoe, and this was the moment my sister finally crossed a line I couldn't ignore. The 15-minute drive home felt like an eternity. Every red light was a personal assault. Every slow driver, a conspiracy against me. My mind raced with possibilities, each worse than the last. How long had Olivia been sitting there alone? What if she'd wandered off? I screeched into my driveway, tires crunching over gravel. There she was, my 7-year-old niece, perched on the front steps like a forgotten package. Her stuffed giraffe, the one I'd given her last Christmas, clutched tight against her chest. Olivia. I called out, stumbling from the car. She looked up, her face tear-streaked but eerily calm. Like she'd expected this. Like she'd been waiting for something like this to happen. Hi, Aunt Zoe, she said softly. Mom said you'd come home eventually. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small body trembling despite the warm spring air. How long have you been here, sweetheart? Since after school. Mom said she had to take Dylan to his soccer tournament. Her voice was matter-of-fact, but her fingers dug into my sweater. She said it was really important. Of course. Dylan's soccer tournament. Everything was always about Dylan. My phone buzzed. Mark's name flashed on the screen. Zoe? Emily's dance class is done. Want me to pick up dinner on the way home? Mark, I struggled to keep my voice steady. Lisa left Olivia here. Alone. 4 hours. The silence on the other end crackled with tension. She did what? She just dropped her off. Left her on the porch. Didn't even wait to see if anyone was home. My free hand clenched into a fist. She left a voicemail saying she can't deal with her anymore. Jesus Christ. Mark's voice hardened. Is Olivia okay? I looked down at my niece, who was now examining a ladybug crawling across the porch railing with forced concentration. Physically, yes. But Mark. This is it. This is the last straw. What are you thinking? I'm thinking my sister needs to learn that actions have consequences. The words came out cold and clear, surprising even me with their intensity. I'm thinking it's time someone showed her what it feels like to lose something precious. Zoe. Get pizza. Extra cheese. Olivia's staying with us tonight. I ended the call before he could respond. Come on, sweetie, I said, gentler now. Let's go inside. I was just making cupcakes for Emily's birthday. Want to help me start a new batch? Olivia's face lit up, then dimmed. Mom says I'm not good at baking. I mess things up. Your mother, I said, unlocking the front door, is wrong about a lot of things. As I watched Olivia carefully measuring flour into a bowl later that evening, her tongue poking out in concentration. My phone lit up with texts from Lisa. I ignored them all. Let her worry. Let her wonder. Let her feel a fraction of the uncertainty and fear she'd inflicted on her daughter. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. My sister had always been obsessed with maintaining her perfect image, her perfect life, her perfect son. Well, I was about to show her just how fragile perfection could be. I smiled at Olivia, helping her crack an egg without getting shells in the batter. Perfect, I told her. That was absolutely perfect. 3 days after abandoning Olivia on my doorstep, Lisa swept into our mother's house for Sunday dinner like nothing had happened. She wore her signature pearls and that practiced smile that made my stomach turn. Olivia, darling, she cooed, arms outstretched. Mommy missed you so much. Olivia, coloring quietly beside Emily at the coffee table, didn't look up. Her crayon moved in careful circles, staying perfectly within the lines. The silence stretched until Lisa's arms dropped, her smile tightening at the corners. Well, Mother said from the kitchen doorway, wooden spoon in hand. Isn't this lovely? The whole family together. I caught the edge in her voice. Mother had always been diplomatic, but even she couldn't completely mask her disapproval. Not this time. Tom trailed in behind Lisa, carrying a sleeping Dylan. Soccer tournament wore him out, he explained, lowering the boy onto the couch. But he scored the winning goal. Of course he did, Lisa beamed. He's so gifted. We're looking at private coaching now, aren't we, honey? I watched Olivia's crayon press harder against the paper. Speaking of children's activities, I said, my voice cutting through the room like static, Olivia's shown quite a talent for baking. She helped me make a perfect batch of cupcakes the other day. Lisa's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. Oh, that's sweet. But really, Zoe, you shouldn't encourage her. She needs to focus on her studies. Her last report card was concerning. Concerning? I set down my wine glass before I could throw it. She's 7, Lisa. And she's brilliant. You don't see her struggles like I do. Lisa's voice dropped to that patronizing whisper she used when she thought she was being diplomatic. The teachers have suggested special arrangements. Special arrangements? Mother's spoon clattered against the counter. What does that mean? There's this wonderful boarding school in Vermont. Vermont? The word exploded from my chest. You're shipping her off to Vermont? Dylan stirred on the couch, blinking awake. Mom? What's happening? Nothing, sweetheart, Lisa rushed to smooth his hair. Your aunt's just being dramatic. As usual. Is this about Olivia? Dylan sat up, suddenly alert. You can't send her away. She's my sister. Lisa's face flushed. Dylan, honey, this is adult conversation. No, he insisted, voice rising. You already make her sit alone in her room during my games. You forgot her at school twice last month. And now you want to send her away? The room froze. Lisa's perfect mask cracked, just for a moment, before she recovered. That's enough, Dylan. Go help your grandfather set the table. I won't. His chin jutted out. Olivia's not stupid. She's better at math than me. She helps me with my homework when you're not looking. I watched my sister's face cycle through shock, embarrassment, and anger. Her carefully constructed narrative was unraveling, and for once, she had no ready excuse. Well, Mother said into the silence. I think it's time we all sat down and had an honest conversation about what's best for this family. All of this family. There's nothing to discuss. Lisa grabbed her purse. Dylan, we're leaving. Tom? But Tom didn't move. He stood by the window, studying the family photos on the wall. Maybe we should stay, he said quietly. Maybe we should listen. Lisa's pearls clicked against each other as she spun to face him. Excuse me? I said we should stay. His voice grew stronger. I'm tired of pretending, Lisa. Aren't you tired? The room held its breath. I watched my sister's perfect world tilt on its axis, watched her scramble to hold on to control. Fine, she spat. Stay. All of you just. Stay here and judge me. But I'm doing what's best for my children. Both of them. She stormed out, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and the weight of unspoken truths. Olivia finally looked up from her coloring book. Her eyes met mine across the room, and in them I saw something that broke my heart and strengthened my resolve, relief. Well, I said, picking up my wine glass again. I guess that's one way to start Sunday dinner. Mother sighed, turning back to her cooking. Zoe, dear? Pour me one too. Something tells me we're going to need it. The boarding school brochure sat on my kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Evergreen Academy for Exceptional Children, their website showed smiling kids in pressed uniforms, but the price tag told the real story. $60,000 a year to make Olivia disappear. I'd found it buried in Lisa's desk drawer while she was at Dylan's championship game. Tom had let me in, his eyes heavy with unspoken guilt. Just look in the bottom right drawer, he'd said before walking away. Now my hands shook as I scrolled through my phone, reading the email chain between Lisa and the school's admissions office. They'd already scheduled an interview. Next Tuesday. She was going to ship Olivia off without even telling us. The front door opened, and Mark's footsteps echoed through the house. Zoe? You won't believe what I just heard at the gym. Lisa's sending Olivia to Vermont. My voice sounded strange, distant. What? No, this is about. Wait, what did you say? I slid the brochure across the counter. Evergreen Academy. 4 states away. She's already paid the application fee. Mark picked up the glossy paper, his jaw tightening. Jesus. When were they planning to tell anyone? They weren't. I pulled up the emails on my phone. Listen to this. We understand your situation with Olivia requires discretion. Many of our families prefer to handle transitions quietly. Transitions? Mark's face darkened. She's not a problem to be solved. She's a child. My phone buzzed, Tom calling. I answered on speaker. Lisa knows you were here, he said without preamble. She found the drawer open. Good. The word came out sharp enough to cut. Let her know I know. You don't understand. She's moving up the timeline. She's calling the school right now, trying to get Olivia admitted immediately. The room tilted. Immediately? It's the middle of the school year. She says it's for the best. That everyone needs a fresh start. His voice cracked. I tried to stop her, but... But what, Tom? But you're too scared to stand up to her? But Dylan's game was more important? But... Because I'm weak. The words exploded through the speaker. Because I've always been weak, and Lisa knows it, and I let her. I let her. Mark grabbed my hand, squeezing hard. Tom, where is Olivia right now? At her piano lesson. The one Lisa doesn't know about. The one I've been paying for in secret because it makes her happy. My heart stopped. Piano lessons? Every Thursday. For 6 months now. She's really good, Zoe. Really good. But Lisa would never. He took a shaky breath. The instructor says she could be exceptional. Exceptional. The word from the brochure mocked me. All this time, Lisa had been looking for ways to fix her daughter, while Olivia had been quietly becoming extraordinary on her own. Text me the address, I said. I'm picking her up. Lisa will be furious. Good. I grabbed my keys. It's time she learned what fury feels like. Zoe, Mark caught my arm. What's your plan here? I thought about Olivia's careful coloring, always staying inside the lines. About Dylan defending his sister when the adults wouldn't. About Tom's secret acts of rebellion, too little and too late. I'm going to listen to my niece play the piano, I said. And then I'm going to burn my sister's perfect world to the ground. I'll help, Tom said quietly. Whatever you need. It's time someone did right by Olivia. As I headed for the door, my phone buzzed again. Lisa. Don't you dare interfere, she hissed when I answered. This is what's best for everyone. No, Lisa. This is what's easiest for you. But easy is over. I felt calm suddenly, ice cold and certain. You want to talk about what's best for everyone? Let's talk about how the country club would react to knowing you abandoned your daughter on a doorstep. Let's talk about what Dylan's soccer coach would say about your parenting priorities. Let's talk about. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. I hung up, started the car. Mark? Call Mother. Tell her to expect company for dinner. And tell her to dust off the old piano in the living room. It's time for a family recital. Late that night, after Mother's impromptu piano recital had left everyone stunned by Olivia's talent, Mark and I sat at our kitchen table. 2 untouched glasses of wine between us, Emily's school schedule pinned under my hand, and a legal pad covered in scribbled logistics. We'd need to convert the home office, Mark said, rubbing his temples. Get her enrolled in Emily's school. Figure out morning routines, after-school pickup. I know it's a lot. My fingers traced the edge of Emily's schedule. But you saw her tonight. The way she played that piano. The way she finally smiled, really smiled. And then Lisa stormed out. Let her storm. She can't, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Mitchell? This is Patricia Walsh from Child Protective Services. The room tilted. Mark's head snapped up at my sharp intake of breath. I'm calling because we received an anonymous report expressing concerns about your home environment. Specifically regarding your daughter Emily's welfare. My grip tightened on the phone. Excuse me? The report suggests possible neglect due to your emotional instability and tendency toward family conflicts. We'll need to schedule a home visit. Lisa. Of course it was Lisa. She couldn't win fairly, so she'd try to destroy me instead. I understand, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. When would you like to come by? Mark's eyes widened as I wrote down the details. The moment I hung up, he reached for my hand. Zoe. She's trying to take Emily. The words felt like glass in my throat. She's trying to make me choose. We'll fight this. We'll. Another buzz. Tom's number. Lisa's filing for emergency custody of Olivia, he said without preamble. She's claiming you're unstable, that you're trying to alienate Olivia from her family. She has character witnesses lined up, other soccer moms, her church friends. They'll all say whatever she wants. I thought of Emily upstairs, sleeping peacefully. Of Olivia, probably lying awake in her too-perfect bedroom, wondering if tonight's moment of triumph would cost her everything. "Tom," I said carefully, "why are you telling me this?" A long pause. "Because I found something else in that drawer. Medical records. Lisa's been. She's been medicating Olivia. Nothing serious, just enough to make her seem difficult. To justify sending her away." The wine glasses rattled as my hand slammed against the table. Mark grabbed them before they could spill. "I have proof," Tom continued. "Prescriptions from different doctors. Notes about dosages. I should have seen it sooner. Should have stopped it. You can stop it now." My voice didn't sound like my own. "Help me protect her. If I do this, Dylan will never forgive her. Or me, for letting it happen so long. Sometimes the truth has to hurt before it can heal." Another pause. "I'll email you everything. But Zoe? Be careful. Lisa. She's not thinking clearly anymore. This isn't just about Olivia now. It's about winning." After he hung up, Mark and I sat in silence, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on us. "If we fight for Olivia," I finally said, "we risk Emily. If we back down, we let Lisa win." Mark stood, pacing the kitchen. "We let her hurt that little girl even more. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't protect my own daughter first? What kind of person would you be if you abandoned Olivia now?" The question hung between us like smoke. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. We both looked up to see Emily in her doorway, Olivia's stuffed giraffe clutched in her arms. "Mom?" Her voice was small but certain. "Remember when you told me sometimes doing the right thing is scary?" I nodded, unable to speak. "I'm not scared. Not if it means helping Olivia." Mark's hand found my shoulder, squeezing gently. "Well," he said, "I guess that's 3 votes for fighting back." I reached for my phone, pulled up Lisa's number. It was time to show my sister that she wasn't the only one who knew how to play dirty. 4 votes, I corrected, hitting dial. Tom's evidence makes it unanimous. The supermarket parking lot wasn't where I'd planned to destroy my sister's reputation, but life rarely follows our careful scripts. I spotted Lisa chatting with her country club friends near the entrance, her perfect posture and practiced laugh carrying across the asphalt. My phone felt heavy in my pocket, Tom's evidence burning a hole through my conscience. One email forward to her entire social circle would reveal everything: the secret medications, the neglect, the lies. My finger hovered over the send button. Then I saw Olivia trailing behind the group, struggling with grocery bags too heavy for her small frame. None of the adults noticed when she stumbled. "Need help with those, sweetheart?" I called out, loud enough to make Lisa freeze mid-sentence. "Aunt Zoe." Olivia's face lit up, then immediately dimmed as she glanced at her mother. Lisa's friends turned, their perfectly lined lips forming surprised O's. "Zoe," Lisa said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "What a surprise. Just picking up supplies for the school bake sale." I moved closer, watching Lisa's fingers twitch around her designer purse strap. "Though I'm surprised to see Olivia out of school this morning." "Doctor's appointment," Lisa said quickly. "Really? Another one?" I met her eyes. "That's 3 this month, isn't it?" The other women shifted uncomfortably. One of them, Sandra Peters, head of the PTA, frowned slightly. "Olivia needs special care," Lisa said, reaching for her daughter's shoulder. Olivia flinched. The flinch didn't go unnoticed. Sandra's frown deepened. "Special care," I repeated. "Like the kind that comes in unmarked pill bottles from different doctors?" Lisa's face went white. "Ladies, would you excuse us? My sister and I need to." "Actually," Sandra interrupted, "I'd like to hear more about these doctor visits. Considering I saw Olivia at the park yesterday during school hours, looking perfectly healthy." The parking lot seemed to hold its breath. In that moment, I saw Lisa's carefully constructed world balanced on a knife's edge. One push would send it tumbling. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark, CPS just left. Everything's fine with Emily. Don't do anything rash. But I was already moving. Show them, Olivia, I said softly. Show them what you can really do. Olivia looked confused until I nodded toward the donation piano, sitting in the store's entrance. The one they wheeled out every holiday season for charity performances. I'm not supposed to, she whispered. You're not supposed to do a lot of things, I said. Like take pills that make you sleepy during school. Or sit alone in your room during Dylan's games. Or. That's enough. Lisa grabbed Olivia's arm. We're leaving. No. The word came from Olivia herself, small but clear. She pulled away from her mother and walked toward the piano. What happened next would be talked about in our town for months. A 7-year-old girl, surrounded by dropped grocery bags and stunned adults. Playing Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata with the kind of skill that only comes from secret practice and raw talent. People gathered. Phones came out. Lisa stood frozen, watching her daughter transform from the burden she'd tried to medicate away into something extraordinary. When Olivia finished, the applause started. Sandra Peters wiped tears from her eyes. Lisa, she said, we need to talk about some concerns that have been raised about your involvement in the PTA. I didn't stay to watch Lisa's social world crumble. Instead, I walked over to Olivia, who was still sitting at the piano, her fingers trembling slightly. Ready to go home, sweetheart? She looked up at me, then at her mother, who was now surrounded by former friends wearing expressions of barely concealed horror. Can we get ice cream first? Of course. I took her hand, feeling its slight shake. And maybe we can talk about which room you'd like at our house. The one next to Emily's has great light for a piano. As we walked away, I deleted the unsent email. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about exposing secrets, it's about letting the truth play its own melody. Behind us, I heard Lisa's voice rise in desperate explanation, but it was drowned out by the whispers of her rapidly dispersing social circle. The sound of consequences finally catching up. Mother's dining room had never felt smaller than it did that evening, with our entire family gathered around the table like jurors at an execution. Lisa sat at one end, Tom at the other, both looking anywhere but at each other. Dylan kept his eyes fixed on his untouched plate, while Olivia pressed against my side, trembling slightly. We're here, Mother said, her voice cutting through the silence, because this family is breaking apart. And it stops today. Lisa's laugh was brittle as thin ice. Breaking apart? Because Zoe's trying to steal my daughter? Steal? The word tasted like poison. You left her on my porch. You've been drugging her. I've been trying to help her. Lisa slammed her hand on the table, making the china rattle. Everything I've done has been to make her better, to give her a chance at. At what? Dylan's voice cracked through the room like lightning. At being perfect? Like me? The silence that followed was deafening. Dylan, Lisa started, but he pushed back from the table. I found your pills in Olivia's cereal this morning. He pulled a small bottle from his pocket, tossing it across the table. It rolled to a stop in front of Mother, who picked it up with shaking hands. That's why I didn't go to practice today. That's why I called this meeting. My heart stopped. This hadn't been Mother's idea at all. You don't understand, Lisa whispered. The pressure, the expectations. I was trying to protect her. By making her sick? Dylan's voice rose. By making her seem stupid? I heard you on the phone with that boarding school. She'll need special accommodations. She has behavioral issues. All lies. I think, Tom said quietly, it's time we discussed custody arrangements. Lisa's head snapped up. What? I'm moving out. Taking the children with me. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. Unless. Unless what? Unless you agree to let Olivia live with Zoe. The room held its breath. I felt Olivia's fingers dig into my arm. You can't, Lisa said, but her voice had lost its edge. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. Tom stood. I've already spoken to a lawyer. One way or another, this ends tonight. I should have felt triumphant. This was what I'd wanted, Lisa cornered, exposed, defeated. But looking at my sister's face, I saw something crack behind her eyes, something fundamental and irreparable. Fine, she said, her voice hollow. Take them both. Take everything. She reached into her purse, pulled out a manila envelope. But first, read this. Mother opened the envelope, her face going pale. Medical records? Not Olivia's, Lisa said. Zoe's. From 10 years ago. The real reason she can't have more children. The real reason she's so desperate to take mine. The room spun. Those records were sealed. Private. My deepest shame laid bare on Mother's antique mahogany. Depression, Lisa continued, her voice gaining strength. Suicidal thoughts. Hospitalization. Are we really going to trust an unstable woman with a child? Stop, Mark said, but Lisa was relentless. What happens when it gets too hard? When the pressure becomes too much? Will you abandon Olivia like you abandoned? Enough. Mother's voice cracked like a whip. But the damage was done. Olivia had pulled away from me, her eyes wide with fear. Dylan looked sick. Tom wouldn't meet my gaze. I'm not. My voice failed. That was different. I was different. Were you? Lisa stood, gathering her perfect posture around her like armor. Or are you just better at hiding it now? I felt the room closing in, felt the old darkness creeping at the edges of my vision. Everything I'd built, every step forward I'd taken, suddenly felt like a lie. Aunt Zoe? Olivia's small voice cut through the chaos in my head. Is it true? Will you leave me too? The question hung in the air like smoke, choking me with its weight. In trying to save Olivia, I'd given Lisa the perfect weapon to destroy us both. I looked at my family, at Mark's concern, Mother's sorrow, Dylan's confusion, and Olivia's fear. I need some air. I fled the room, Lisa's triumphant smile burning into my back, leaving behind the shattered remains of both our families. Sometimes revenge doesn't just destroy your target. Sometimes it burns everything to the ground, including yourself. Mother's old piano sat in the corner of the living room, its dark wood reflecting the evening light. I'd been sitting on the front steps for what felt like hours when I heard its first tentative notes floating through the window. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. The piece I'd taught Olivia in secret during those quiet afternoons when Lisa thought she was acting out again. I stood, drawn back inside by the music. The family had moved to the living room, creating a tableau that stopped my breath. Olivia sat at the piano, her small fingers dancing across the keys with a confidence I'd never seen before. Emily stood beside her, turning pages. Dylan watched from the doorway, tears streaming down his face. Lisa stood frozen in the center of the room, her perfect mask cracking with each perfect note. She's been practicing for months, Tom said quietly. Every Thursday, when you thought she was in therapy. I don't. Lisa's voice faltered. I never knew. You never looked, I said from the doorway. Everyone turned except Olivia, who kept playing, lost in the music. You were so busy trying to fix her, you never saw who she already was. I was protecting her. Lisa's voice cracked. The world is cruel to people who are different, who don't fit in. I learned that watching you, Zoe. Watching you break apart when I lost my baby? The words didn't hurt anymore. That's the difference between us, Lisa. You see broken things that need fixing. I see people who need love. The music swelled, filling the spaces between our words. Love? Lisa laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. Love doesn't win soccer championships. Love doesn't get you into Ivy League schools. Love doesn't. Love got your daughter through every day you tried to dim her light, Mother interrupted, her voice steel-wrapped silk. Love brought Dylan here tonight to save his sister. Love kept Tom silent until he couldn't bear it anymore. The music stopped. Olivia turned on the bench, her eyes meeting mine across the room. I wrote something, she said softly. Will you listen? Without waiting for an answer, she began to play again. This time, the melody was different, simpler, raw, full of longing and hope and pain. A child's composition that spoke more truth than all our adult words. Lisa sank into a chair, her hands covering her face. I don't know how to fix this. Maybe, Dylan said, moving to stand beside his sister at the piano, you need to stop trying to fix everything. The boarding school application, Tom added. The medications. The therapy sessions that weren't therapy. It all stops now. Or what? Lisa's voice was small, defeated. Or you lose everything, I said. Not because I took it from you. But because you threw it away trying to build something perfect instead of loving something real. Olivia's song reached its finale, a series of notes that hung in the air like questions waiting to be answered. I want to stay with Aunt Zoe, she said into the silence. Not forever. Just until Mom remembers how to see me. Lisa looked up, mascara tracking down her cheeks. For the first time in years, I saw my sister instead of the polished facade she'd built. I see you now, she whispered. I'm so sorry, but I see you now. Sometimes, Mother said, taking Lisa's hand, we have to break apart to come back together stronger. Dylan sat next to Olivia on the piano bench. Play it again, he said. I think I hear a harmony in there. As the siblings began to play together, Lisa turned to me. I wanted to hurt you, she admitted. With those medical records. With everything. But I was only hurting myself, wasn't I? No, I said, watching Olivia teach Dylan the notes, watching Emily sway to their combined melody. You were hurting all of us. And now we all have to heal. Together? Lisa asked, and for a moment I heard the echo of my little sister, before perfection became her prison. Together, I agreed. But on their terms, not ours. The music filled the room again, no longer a weapon or a secret, but a bridge across the broken places in our family. Not perfect, but real. Not fixed, but healing. And sometimes, that's the sweetest revenge of all. The sound of piano music drifted through my kitchen window, Olivia teaching Dylan a new piece while Emily turned pages. 3 months of weekends at my house had turned into this, casual afternoons filled with music, laughter, and the smell of baking cookies. I wiped flour from my hands as the doorbell rang. Lisa stood on my porch, holding a familiar stuffed giraffe. Olivia left this at home, she said, the word catching in her throat. After therapy yesterday. Real therapy this time. Not the kind meant to hide her away. Come in, I said. They're practicing for the recital. Lisa hesitated at the threshold, as if crossing it might break something fragile. The Lisa I knew 3 months ago would have swept in, armed with criticism and perfectly rehearsed smiles. This Lisa moved like a ghost in her own life. In the living room, Dylan hit a wrong note. Instead of flinching, Olivia laughed. Like this, she demonstrated, her small fingers dancing across the keys. See? It's a story in music. Lisa pressed her hands together, watching her children create something beautiful from imperfection. The PTA meeting was today, she said quietly. Sandra Peters made a point of telling me about the music program funding. How important it is to nurture natural talent. Lisa. No, let me finish. She twisted her wedding ring, no longer perfectly centered. Tom moved back in last week. We're trying. But he made it clear, no more fixes. No more perfect facades. She smiled, bitter and real. Turns out revenge doesn't taste like I thought it would. This wasn't about revenge, I started, but stopped when I saw her expression. Wasn't it? Even a little? She placed the giraffe on my counter. You wanted to show me what a real mother looks like. Wanted me to feel as helpless as Olivia did. As helpless as you did, when the old pain flickered but didn't burn. Maybe at first. But revenge doesn't heal anything. Love does. The piano music shifted to something new, the piece Olivia had composed that night at Mother's. But different now, fuller. 3 sets of hands on the keys, creating harmony from chaos. Dylan dropped soccer, Lisa said suddenly. Did you know? Says he wants to focus on music instead. I let him. The admission hung between us like a bridge waiting to be crossed. There's room at the piano, I said. If you want to stay. She shook her head, but gently. Not today. Baby steps, right? That's what the family counselor says. As if on cue, Olivia's voice carried from the living room, Mom? Is that you? Lisa froze. 3 months ago, Olivia would have hidden at the sound of her mother's voice. 3 months ago, Lisa would have demanded perfection instead of connection. Yes, sweetheart, she called back, her voice trembling. I brought your giraffe. Come listen. Dylan this time. Olivia's teaching me her song. Emily added a new part. Lisa looked at me, questions swimming in her eyes. I nodded toward the living room. Go. They're waiting. She moved toward the music, stopping at the doorway. Zoe? Thank you. For showing me what I almost lost. For giving me a chance to find it again. I watched her join her children at the piano, watched her listen instead of direct, learn instead of teach. The revenge I'd wanted had transformed into something else, redemption, maybe. Or resurrection. Emily caught my eye from the piano bench, grinning as she scooted over to make room for her aunt. 4 sets of hands now, stumbling toward harmony. I turned back to my baking, letting their music fill my kitchen. The cookies might burn, the notes might falter, and our healing might take longer than we hoped. But perfection was never the point. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in destroying your enemy, but in showing them a better way to live. And sometimes, just sometimes, revenge transforms into forgiveness when you're not looking. I reached for the giraffe, straightening its crooked bow tie before heading back to my cookies. Behind me, the music played on, beautifully, imperfectly, free.
Success tastes like expensive champagne and bitter almonds. I'm staring at my phone, watching the likes and comments pile up on my promotion announcement while my hands shake around my celebration glass. 7 years of silence shattered by one social media post, and now my mother's number flashes on the screen like a warning sign. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Mother. Rowan, darling. Her voice drips with the same synthetic sweetness she used to coat our childhood disappointments. I just saw your wonderful news. Senior Marketing Director at 38. We're all so proud. I'm 28, not 38. She knows this. Just like she knows I prefer whiskey to champagne and that I'm allergic to almonds. Little details that mothers should remember about their daughters, filed away under unimportant in Linda Mitchell's perfectly coiffed head. Thank you, I say, keeping my voice level. It was unexpected. Oh, but you must tell us all about it. Your father and I were just saying how perfectly timed this is. You know, with Hannah looking to break into marketing herself. Of course. Hannah. My fingers tighten around the stem of my glass until I worry it might snap. My sister's name hasn't crossed my mother's lips in 7 years, not since the incident that drove me away. Now it's wielded like a weapon, wrapped in casual conversation. Is that why you're calling, Mother? To discuss Hannah's career prospects? Don't be difficult, Rowan. Family helps family. And we're having a little gathering next weekend, nothing fancy, just close family. Your grandmother Evelyn's been asking about you. Grandmother. My throat tightens. The one person I've truly missed, the woman who taught me that strength doesn't mean staying in toxic situations. Who supported my decision to leave even while it broke her heart. I'm quite busy with the new position, I say, but my resolve wavers. Evelyn's not getting any younger, dear. She'd love to see you. And Hannah's prepared a special dinner. My phone buzzes with an incoming text. It's from Aunt Carol. Don't let them manipulate you. But if you come, I've got your back. Also, Maggie misses her favorite cousin. I close my eyes, remembering my 12-year-old cousin's gap-toothed smile and her constant documentation of family events on her phone. At least some family members are genuine. I'll think about it, I say finally. Wonderful. Saturday at 7. Wear something nice, you know how your father appreciates proper presentation. The call ends before I can respond. Typical. I down the rest of my champagne, grimacing at the taste. 7 years of building a life without them, of therapy sessions and self-discovery, of learning that success doesn't require parental approval. All potentially undone by one phone call. My phone buzzes again. This time it's a text from Hannah. Can't wait to see you, sis. So much to catch up on. By the way, that promotion sounds amazing. Any chance we could grab coffee before Saturday? I'd love some career advice. I stare at the message, noting the excessive exclamation points, the casual assumption that I'll attend. The immediate pivot to what she wants from me. Some things never change. Another text arrives, this one from grandmother Evelyn. They're playing their games again, my dear. But sometimes the best revenge is showing them exactly who you've become without them. Your choice. Always your choice. I set down my phone and walked to my office window, looking out at the city lights below. 7 years ago, I walked away from their manipulation and favoritism. Now they're offering me a chance to return, not as the forgotten daughter, but as someone they need. The question is, what am I going to do about it? Grandmother Evelyn's house smells exactly the same, lavender and old books, with a hint of the butter cookies she always keeps in her crystal jar. Standing on her front porch, I almost convince myself the last 7 years never happened. Almost. You look tired, dear. She pulls me into a hug before I can protest. Her arms are thinner than I remember, but her grip is still strong. Come in before your mother spots you and turns this into one of her impromptu garden parties. I follow her inside, noting the fresh paint on the walls, still the same shade of pale yellow. You've been redecorating. Your father's idea. Says the house needs updating if we're going to maintain property values. She waves her hand dismissively. Sit. Tell me about this promotion that's got everyone in such a tizzy. Before I can answer, the front door swings open. Hannah breezes in, designer handbag swinging from her arm. Grandmother. Oh, Rowan. You're early. Actually, I'm right on time. Hannah's smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. Mother said you changed. More. Professional now. Her gaze slides over my tailored suit. Though some things never change, do they? Still hiding behind those boring corporate clothes. Hannah. Grandmother's voice carries a warning. What? I'm complimenting her success. Speaking of which. Hannah perches on the arm of my chair, too close. I've been thinking about your offer to mentor me. I never made that offer. But Mother said. Whatever Mother said was her interpretation, not mine. I stand, needing space. I haven't agreed to anything. Hannah's face darkens. You always do this. Act so superior, like you're the only one who. Girls! Grandmother claps her hands. Hannah, dear, why don't you check if your mother needs help with the arrangements? Hannah leaves, but not before shooting me a look that brings back memories of my high school graduation. The day she'd announced her acceptance into community college drama classes during my valedictorian speech. Stealing my moment just like she always did. She hasn't changed, I mutter. No, Grandmother agrees. But you have. She reaches for her cookie jar, then pauses. Oh, that's right, your almond allergy. Linda brought these. I'll get the butter cookies from the kitchen. My stomach clenches. Mother knows I'm allergic to almonds. Does she? Grandmother's voice is carefully neutral. She mentioned something about you outgrowing that childhood sensitivity. The doorbell chimes before I can respond. Aunt Carol enters with Maggie, who immediately launches herself at me. Rowan! Look what I got! She waves her new phone. I'm documenting everything now. For my video diary. Everything? I ask. Maggie, Aunt Carol warns, remember what we discussed about privacy? But this is family stuff, Maggie protests. And Rowan's famous now. I saw her on LinkedIn. Hannah returns, followed by our parents. Mother's wearing her event planning smile, the one that means she's orchestrating something. Father barely glances at me before checking his phone. Rowan, darling, Mother trills, Hannah has the most wonderful news. She's been offered an interview at your company's creative department. The room goes silent. Hannah studies her manicure, avoiding my eyes. Interesting, I say slowly. Considering our creative director just announced their retirement. Internally. Yesterday. Father finally looks up. Your mother may have mentioned your promotion to some colleagues at the country club. Of course she did. The pieces click into place, Mother's sudden call, the family gathering, Hannah's forced friendliness. This was never about reconciliation, was it? Don't be dramatic, Mother sighs. We're simply utilizing family connections. It's what successful people do. No, I stand, hands shaking. It's what you do. Use people. Manipulate situations. Did you even consider that putting Hannah under my supervision might damage my professional reputation? Well, Hannah sniffs, maybe if you weren't so selfish. Selfish? I laugh, the sound harsh even to my ears. That's rich, coming from you. From the corner, I hear the distinct sound of Maggie's phone camera clicking. Aunt Carol moves to stop her. But not before capturing whatever expression crosses Hannah's face, something ugly and familiar that makes my skin crawl. Grandmother touches my arm. Perhaps we should move this discussion to the dining room. I've prepared your favorite dessert, chocolate torte. No almonds. But I'm already reaching for my bag. 7 years wasn't long enough. Some cracks can't be plastered over with family dinners and forced smiles. As I turn to leave, Hannah calls out, running away again? How predictable. I pause at the door. No, Hannah. This time I'm walking away. There's a difference. Behind me, Maggie's phone keeps recording. The family dinner stretches like a rubber band about to snap. Mother's dining room, with its pristine wallpaper and carefully arranged family photos, feels more like an interrogation chamber. Hannah sits across from me, pushing food around her plate while father drones on about market projections and networking opportunities. The creative director position would be perfect for Hannah, Mother says, refilling wine glasses no one has emptied. Rowan could mentor her, show her the ropes. I set down my fork. The position requires 10 years of experience. But surely, father interrupts, with your influence. My influence comes from earning my position, not nepotism. Hannah's fork clatters against her plate. God, you're still so self-righteous. Some of us actually have talent, not just ruthless ambition. Talent? I laugh. Is that what you call manipulating people to get what you want? Girls, Mother warns, but there's a tremor in her voice. She knows what's coming. Tell them about the interview, Hannah. The words taste like acid. Tell them how you already knew about the position before it was publicly announced. Color drains from Hannah's face. I don't know what you're talking about. I checked my work email. Someone's been accessing it, badly covering their tracks, but accessing it nonetheless. Only family would know my password hints. I turned to Mother. Did you help her with that too? Father's phone drops to the table. Linda? It's not what you think, Mother starts, but I'm already standing. I need air. The dining room suddenly feels too small, too suffocating. I slip into Father's study, needing distance, but voices drift through the heating vent, a secret passage Hannah and I discovered as children. When eavesdropping was still a game. Can't let her ruin this opportunity, Mother's voice hisses. Hannah needs this position. We've already arranged everything with the board members at the country club. She's suspicious now, Father responds. Maybe if we... I don't care what we have to do. Hannah gets this job. Rowan owes us after everything we've done for her. A soft laugh, Hannah's. Don't worry. I have something that might make her more cooperative. My phone buzzes. A text from Maggie. Check your email now. You need to see this. I pull up my inbox. There's a video attachment from Maggie, filmed through the study's window. Mother and Hannah, yesterday, huddled over my father's computer. Hannah's voice comes through clearly. Her work password was easy, just had to think like Little Miss Perfect. Now we can adjust her performance reviews for the creative team. The study door creaks. I switch off my phone as Hannah enters, her smile razor sharp. Found you, she says. Mother's serving dessert. Her special almond torte. I'm allergic to almonds. Are you? She steps closer. That's right. Like you're allergic to sharing the spotlight. To letting anyone else succeed. You tried to hack my work account. Prove it. She shrugs. Besides, who would believe you? The jealous older sister, trying to sabotage her talented younger sibling? That's not a good look for a senior director. My hands shake. What happened to you, Hannah? What happened? Her mask slips. You left. You abandoned us. And now you're back, acting superior. When really you're just the same scared little girl who ran away because she couldn't handle not being daddy's favorite anymore. That's not. Save it. She moves to the door. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to recommend me for that position. You're going to mentor me. And you're going to do it with a smile, or everyone at your precious company will learn about your history of mental health issues. I went to therapy because of this family's abuse. Funny how stories can be reframed. Her smile returns. Now come have dessert. Mother made it specially for you. I watch her leave, my heart pounding. Through the vent, I hear Mother calling everyone to the table. Maggie's video burns in my inbox like a loaded gun. 7 years ago, I ran from their manipulation. Now I have proof of their true nature, captured in pixels and promises. The question isn't whether to use it, but when. Grandmother Evelyn's garden has always been her sanctuary. Even now, as she clips dead roses from their stems, her movements are precise, deliberate. I watch from the stone bench, Maggie's video burning a hole in my pocket. You're not eating the almond torte, she says without turning around. Smart girl. You knew? I've watched Hannah bake it 3 times this week. Practicing, she said. Evelyn's scissors snap shut with finality. Your mother enabled her perfectionism. I enabled my silence. We all have our sins to bear. A bee buzzes past, landing on one of the remaining roses. The garden suddenly feels less safe. I have proof now, I say. Of what they're doing. What they've always done. And what will you do with it? She finally turns, her eyes sharp. Revenge is a rose with thorns on both ends, Rowan. My phone buzzes, another message from Hannah, time's running out. Decision by tomorrow, or those medical records go public. Evelyn notices my hands shaking. Show me. I play Maggie's video. Grandmother's face hardens as she watches Hannah and Mother plotting at Father's computer. When it ends, she sets her gardening tools down with careful precision. There's more, I say. Hannah's threatening to expose my therapy records. Twist them into something ugly. Like they twisted everything else. She removes her gloves, revealing soil-stained hands. Did I ever tell you about your grandfather? The abrupt change throws me. Only that he died before I was born. He didn't die. He left. After I exposed his affair with his secretary to the board of directors. She smiles, but it's sharp as her scissors. He was going to blame me for embezzlement. I simply struck first. Grandmother. The point isn't the revenge, dear. It's knowing when to strike, and why. She touches a rose, gentle despite her words. Your sister is planning something worse than career sabotage. I see it in her eyes, the same look your grandfather had before he tried to destroy me. A crash from inside the house makes us both jump. Through the window, I glimpse Hannah at Father's computer again, Mother standing guard. They're getting desperate, Grandmother observes. Desperate people make mistakes. Or become more dangerous. I stand, pacing the garden path. If I expose them now, I'll lose any chance of reconciliation. Reconciliation? She laughs, harsh and sudden. Look at me, Rowan. Really look. I do. Beyond her carefully maintained appearance, I notice the slight tremor in her hands, the tension in her shoulders. I spent 40 years hoping your grandfather would realize his mistakes. Would apologize. Choose family over pride. She picks up her scissors again. He died last month. Never changed. Never admitted what he did. My phone buzzes again, Aunt Carol this time, Hannah's at the company office. Now. Emergency. Go, Grandmother says, reading my expression. But remember, sometimes protecting yourself means burning bridges others built to trap you. I hesitate at the garden gate. What happened after you exposed grandfather? I built this garden. Planted these roses. Created something beautiful from the ashes of what he tried to destroy. She straightens, suddenly looking younger. The thorns protect the blooms, dear. Remember that. Racing to my car, I call Aunt Carol. Her voice is tight with urgency. Hannah convinced the board to hold an emergency meeting. She's presenting evidence of your misconduct. Maggie overheard her practicing her speech. She's going to claim you've been sabotaging other employees' careers to maintain your position. The irony would be funny if it weren't so devastating. How long do I have? Meetings in an hour. But Rowan. She pauses. Maggie got more footage. Of Hannah doctoring documents on your father's computer. The timestamps match the unauthorized access to your work account. I think of grandmother's roses, beautiful but armed. Of bridges built as traps. Send me everything, I say, starting the engine. It's time to show them who I've become. Behind me, in grandmother's garden, the roses stand proud despite their pruning. Sometimes growth requires cutting away the dead parts first. The boardroom feels like a tomb, all polished mahogany and stifled breath. Hannah stands at the front, perfectly poised in her designer suit, while 12 board members lean forward in their chairs. My evidence folder sits heavy in my bag, but I wait, watching my sister perform. As you can see from these performance reviews, Hannah gestures to the projected documents, my signature forged at the bottom. My sister has systematically undermined potential competitors within the creative department. Director Chin frowns at his tablet. These are serious allegations, Miss Mitchell. Please, Hannah's smile is razor sharp, call me Hannah. We're practically family, aren't we? Mother mentioned your lovely dinner party last weekend. My phone vibrates, Maggie sending another video. I don't need to watch it. The timestamp will match Hannah's latest forgery, just like the others. Rowan? Director Chin turns to me. Your response? I stand slowly, feeling the weight of years of family dynamics pressing down. Before I respond, I'd like to ask my sister one question. Hannah's smile flickers. This isn't an interrogation. No, I agree, it's a performance. Your best one yet. I step closer, watching her hands clench. Tell me, did Mother help you practice this presentation like she helped you practice your high school drama auditions? Or did Father coach you on corporate politics while you were using his computer to hack my work account? The boardroom temperature seems to drop. Hannah's smile vanishes completely. That's ridiculous, she says, but her voice wavers. I would never. My phone connects to the projector with a soft beep. Maggie's latest video fills the screen, Hannah at Father's computer, Mother standing guard. Both of them hunched over documents that look suspiciously like the ones currently displayed. Turn that off, Hannah snaps, lunging for the controls. Why? Isn't this your big moment? The spotlight you've always craved? You don't understand, she hisses. You never understood what it's like living in your shadow. My shadow? I laugh, the sound harsh even to my own ears. You were the golden child, Hannah. The artistic one, the special one. I was just the workhorse who didn't fit the family image. Enough, Director Chin interrupts. Security is on their way. Both of you will. The boardroom door bursts open. Mother sweeps in, Father trailing behind her like a reluctant shadow. This is all a misunderstanding, Mother announces. Family disagreements that should never have reached the workplace. We can. Linda? Director Chen's eyes narrow. Did you arrange this emergency meeting through your country club connections? Mother's perfectly composed facade cracks slightly. I was merely helping my daughters. By facilitating corporate espionage? I pull out my folder. I have proof of unauthorized access to company systems, forged documents, and attempted character assassination. All tied to my family's IP addresses. You wouldn't, Hannah whispers. We're family. Family? The word tastes bitter. Family doesn't try to destroy each other for personal gain. Family doesn't. A notification pings on my phone. Another video from Maggie, just recorded, Hannah in the parking garage, mixing something into a coffee cup. The timestamp shows 10 minutes ago. I glance at my own coffee, sitting untouched on the boardroom table. The one Hannah insisted on bringing me as a peace offering before the meeting. Security's here, Director Chen announces as 2 guards enter. Please escort everyone except Miss Mitchell, Rowan Mitchell, from the premises. As they're led out, Hannah turns back. You'll regret this. Mother and father will never forgive you. No, I say quietly, but I might finally forgive myself. The door closes behind them, leaving me alone with the board and the evidence of years of manipulation. My phone buzzes one last time, a message from grandmother. The thorns protect the bloom, dear. Let them bleed. I take a deep breath and face the board, ready to tell the whole story. Sometimes protection means more than just defending yourself, it means ensuring the thorns are sharp enough that no one dares attack again. Grandmother's house glows with party lights, a perfect facade for the nightmare unfolding inside. Mother has outdone herself, crystal glasses catching lamplight, fresh flowers on every surface, and the entire country club board in attendance. All here to witness Hannah's triumphant entry into corporate success, riding on the coattails of my destruction. Rowan, darling, Mother calls across the room. Come join us. Hannah's about to make an announcement. The room spins slightly. I've been careful, avoiding anything Hannah might have tampered with, but something feels wrong. My throat tightens as Hannah takes center stage, champagne flute in hand. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, she begins, her voice carrying that practiced theatrical tremor. Especially my sister, Rowan, who's been so supportive of my career aspirations. The word supportive drips with venom. I reach for my water glass, trying to steady myself. In fact, Hannah continues, Rowan's already helped secure my position in the creative department. The board was quite impressed with my portfolio, particularly those performance reviews. My vision blurs. The water tastes strange, bitter, with a familiar undertone that sends panic shooting through my chest. Almonds. Hannah, I try to speak, but my throat is closing. What did you? Oh dear, she says, eyes wide with fake concern. Are you feeling unwell? Mother, didn't you say Rowan outgrew her almond allergy? The room tilts. Through the gathering darkness, I see Maggie's phone raised, recording everything. Mother rushes forward, her perfectly manicured hands fluttering uselessly. Someone call an ambulance. Aunt Carol's voice cuts through the chaos. She's just being dramatic, Hannah says smoothly. She always does this when attention shifts to me. My knees buckle. Grandmother appears beside me, her voice sharp with fury. Where's her EpiPen? In her bag, Mother says. But surely she doesn't need. Her bag's gone, Hannah interrupts. How strange. The world fades to snippets of sound and shadow. Grandmother's voice, steel-edged, you've gone too far this time. Aunt Carol on the phone with emergency services. Maggie's quiet sobbing. Delete that video, Hannah hisses, presumably at Maggie. Now. Make me, Maggie responds, sounding far older than 12. Someone's holding my hand, grandmother. Stay with us, dear. Help is coming. But darkness creeps in, heavy and final. The last thing I hear is Hannah's voice, pitched for the crowd. I don't understand. She knew there were almonds in the water. Mother specifically mentioned it. The lie follows me into unconsciousness, along with the realization that my sister finally has what she wanted, me out of the way. My reputation in tatters, and her path to success clear. I wake to hospital lights and beeping machines. Grandmother sits beside my bed, looking older than I've ever seen her. How long? My voice is raw. 6 hours. She grips my hand. Hannah's telling everyone you deliberately drank the almond water to sabotage her announcement. Your mother's backing her story. Of course she is. Maggie's video? Deleted. Hannah smashed her phone. Grandmother's voice hardens. But not before Maggie uploaded everything to the cloud. Every video, every recording, from the past week. Including Hannah tampering with your water. Hope flickers, then dies. It doesn't matter. The board believes her performance reviews. My career's over. Is it? Grandmother reaches for her bag. Remember when I told you about your grandfather? About striking at the right moment? She pulls out a USB drive. I kept copies of his original documents, proof of his schemes. The same computer your father uses. The same passwords he never changes. Like father, like daughter. My throat tightens again, this time with something other than anaphylaxis. You knew they'd try something like this? I knew they'd overreach. She places the drive in my hand. The question is, are you ready to end this? Really end it? Through the window, I see Mother and Hannah in the hallway, already spinning their story to concerned board members. 7 years of distance, of healing, of building myself up, all undone by their relentless need to control the narrative. My fingers close around the drive. Sometimes protection means more than survival. Sometimes it means making sure they can never hurt you, or anyone else, again. Yes, I whisper. I'm ready. The hospital's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as I plug grandmother's USB drive into my laptop. Hannah hovers in the doorway, her perfect composure finally cracking. Whatever you think you're doing, she starts, but I cut her off. Did you know father never changed his passwords? My voice is still raw from the intubation. 20 years of financial records, emails, everything. Including your little performance review forgeries. She steps inside, closing the door. You're bluffing. Like you were bluffing about the almonds? I turn the screen toward her. Or about the board meeting? Or maybe about this. The video plays, Hannah mixing something into the water pitcher, Mother watching, Father in the background checking his phone. The timestamp is clear. Maggie's quite the documentary filmmaker, I say. Though smashing her phone was a bit obvious, don't you think? I was protecting myself. Hannah's mask slips further. You've always forced me to. Force you? The laugh hurts my throat. I left. For 7 years, I stayed away. But that wasn't enough, was it? You needed to destroy me completely. You don't understand what it's like. She surges forward. Perfect Rowan, with her perfect career. Do you know what mother and father expected from me after you left? The pressure, the constant comparisons? Poor Hannah. I click through more files. Always the victim. Even when you're committing attempted murder. That's ridiculous. It was just an allergic reaction. That you deliberately caused. On video. With witnesses. I need her eyes. The police are already reviewing the footage. The color drains from her face. You wouldn't dare. We're family. Family? Another click reveals father's emails about Hannah's forged credentials. Like when you and mother planned to use my position to cover up your lack of qualifications? Or when father helped you hack my work account. I earned my chance. By trying to kill me? The door opens. Mother rushes in, followed by father. Their timing was always impeccable. Darling, let's discuss this privately, mother starts, but stops when she sees the screen. Her own words in black and white, detailed instructions to Hannah about accessing my work files. Linda? Father's voice shakes. What did you do? What you never had the courage to do, mother snaps. Make things happen. Ensure our daughter's success. By attempting murder? Grandmother enters, Aunt Carol and Maggie behind her. That's what this is, Linda. Premeditated attempted murder. Don't be dramatic. I have the hospital toxicology report, Aunt Carol interrupts. The almond concentration was deliberate. Calculated. Hannah lunges for my laptop. I press enter. What did you do? She demands. Sent everything to the board. The police. The family lawyers. My finger hovers over another key. And with one more click, it all goes public. Every email, every video, every calculated move to destroy me while building Hannah's fake career. You'll destroy this family, mother whispers. No, grandmother steps forward. You did that years ago. Rowan's just turning on the lights. Hannah's composure shatters completely. I'll deny everything. Say you doctored the evidence. With what credentials? I turn the screen one last time. Your real college transcripts are here too. The ones showing you never finished that arts degree you claim to have. The room goes silent except for Maggie's phone, still recording. Hannah stares at mother, who stares at father, who finally looks at me. I never meant. He starts. Save it. I press the final key. It's done. Hannah's phone chimes. Then mother's. Then father's. The sound of multiple notifications filling the room as the truth spreads through email chains and social media. You've ruined everything, Hannah whispers. No, I say, watching their carefully constructed facade crumble. I just stopped letting you ruin me. Grandmother places a hand on my shoulder as security arrives, summoned by the hospital after reviewing the toxicology report. As they escort Hannah away, mother crying, father silent, I feel nothing but exhaustion. Was it worth it? Maggie asks quietly, lowering her phone. I think of the roses in grandmother's garden, how they bloom despite the thorns, because of the thorns. Ask me tomorrow, I say, watching my family's web of lies finally, irrevocably, unravel. Grandmother's roses survived the autumn frost, their late blooms defiant against the cold. I clip dead leaves from the bushes while she sorts through old photographs on her patio table. The morning paper lies between us, its headline still sharp, Mitchell family scandal, attempted murder charges filed. Hannah's lawyer called again, I say, printing another withered stem. They're offering a deal. Grandmother doesn't look up from her photos. And? She'll plead guilty to lesser charges if I agree not to testify. The thorns catch my gardening gloves. Mother sent a letter through Aunt Carol, begging me to consider it. For the family's sake. Always for the family. Grandmother slides a photograph across the table. Found this while cleaning out the attic. It's me at 18, valedictorian speech in hand, Hannah visible in the background. Even then, her expression held that mixture of jealousy and calculation. I'd missed it at the time, too busy trying to earn the approval I'd never receive. The board voted yesterday. I continue, moving to another rose bush. Father's resigned. Mother's country club membership's been revoked. Their whole social circle's imploding. Good. Grandmother's voice carries no sympathy. Though that's not what's really bothering you, is it? The printing shears slip, drawing blood despite my gloves. A perfect metaphor, even with protection, some things still cut deep. I found this in Father's emails. I pull out a folded paper. From 7 years ago, right after I left. Hannah asked them to reach out, to apologize. They refused. Said it would teach me humility. And now? Now I understand why you let grandfather destroy himself. The admission feels like releasing a long-held breath. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge. It's about finally stepping away and letting truth do its work. Maggie appears at the garden gate, phone conspicuously absent for the first time in weeks. Mom says Hannah's taking the deal. She'll serve time. She hesitates. She asked me to tell you she's sorry. Not Hannah, Mom. For not stopping things sooner. Your mother did what she could, Grandmother says. She documented the truth. Sometimes that's the greatest act of love possible. I study the roses, how they've grown stronger after pruning. The detective handling Hannah's case asked why I didn't press charges 7 years ago, when she first started sabotaging my career. I told him I wasn't ready to see the thorns for what they were. And now? Maggie asks. Now I understand what Grandmother meant about protection. I remove my gardening gloves, examining the small cut on my finger. Sometimes it's not about avoiding pain. It's about choosing which battles leave scars worth keeping. Grandmother gathers her photographs, pausing at one final image. Found this too. Thought you should have it. It's not a photograph but a letter, dated decades ago. My hands shake as I read my grandfather's words, threatening Grandmother with the same tactics Hannah used against me. The same manipulation, the same family pressure, the same choice between truth and acceptance. You knew, I whisper. All along, you knew what they might do. I knew what people do when image matters more than integrity. She stands, stronger somehow in her revelation. But I also knew you needed to find your own thorns. Maggie picks up the pruning shears I dropped, examining their sharp edges. Will you help me plant my own roses next spring? Mom says our yard needs something that lasts. The question catches me off guard, this simple request for future growth. I look at Grandmother, who nods almost imperceptibly. Yes, I say, understanding finally blooming like a late autumn rose. But first, let me show you how to handle the thorns. Behind us, the morning paper's headline fades in the sunlight, yesterday's scandal becoming tomorrow's cautionary tale. Some would call it revenge, this systematic exposure of family secrets. But here, among the roses my grandmother taught me to tend, I recognize it for what it is, pruning, making space for healthier growth. I reach for the shears, ready to demonstrate their proper use. After all, every gardener knows, the sharpest tools, handled with care, create the strongest blooms.